Hey travelers, Mag and I here on day 102 of our trip around the United States. One of the things that I always try and tell people about traveling through the United States is even though we have 50 states that are all connected, each state is very unique in its own right. They all have their own set of laws, cultures, customs, words, sometimes accents, and geographical features. For all intents and purposes, today is really a Nebraska day. It is the first day that we're going to be starting into our route for Nebraska, and the majority of our miles for today are going to be in Nebraska. However, being here at the very southeastern corner of South Dakota presents us with an opportunity to get the pages and the counties in 3 states very easily and very close together. This morning we're going to be crisscrossing back and forth across the Missouri River. We're starting things off here from Iowa. From here we're going to cross back into South Dakota. From South Dakota we're going to drop into Nebraska for a minute before we cross back over into Iowa. And then from Iowa, we're gonna hit Sioux City and cross back over in Nebraska. Once we cross into Nebraska for that last time, that is officially where we begin our miles for the day. We're gonna end up spending about half of our day crisscrossing the states here and about half the day covering the 300 miles through the northeastern portion of Nebraska for the day. As soon as we crossed into Iowa, the terrain changed. Not dramatically, but enough to be noticed. It went from the flat lands of South Dakota to a lot thicker hills here in Iowa. You could see the contrast between hills that were shaped, let's say like this, compared to hills that are shaped like this. And hopefully in Nebraska, we'll be seeing a lot more of those trees we saw yesterday, because one thing we did not see very much of in South Dakota or North Dakota was trees. They had patches, a few trees here and there to separate farmlands, a few trees here and there along the roads, but by and large, there just were not trees in the state. And then once we crossed into Nebraska yesterday, we found ourselves in what was basically a forest. And then coming into Iowa today, we see the same thing. There's trees all around us here. Hopefully the state will show a lot of that, but I know, looking at the satellite imagery for both states, we are definitely in store for a lot more farmlands, because this is where farming happens in the US of A. We're excited to get our day started off, and we're excited to show you whatever it has in store. So come on, let's go. We may have started our day off in Iowa, but we certainly weren't there very long. We only jumped into the northwest corner in page 14 to make finds in Lyon and Sioux County, and then we were out again. All right, yeah, we made it back to South Dakota again. Crossing the river from Iowa into South Dakota is a clear indication that you've changed across the state line. The rolling hills have become a bit more subtle, and the trees have thinned out to bare patches once again. Hello, Iowa, my friend. Didn't we just meet somewhere recently? Funny seeing you here again. We didn't need any counties or pages on either side of the river here, so we decided to pop through Akron instead so that we could visit an earth cache and take a look at this very nice park. Another place where I would definitely consider bedding down at the end of a day. Well, deja vu. I feel like I've seen those faces somewhere before. Recently? Rest area geocaches are always appreciated. Usually it's just 1, maybe 2 geocaches in a rest stop. But in this rest stop, they went to the furthest corners and they hit a geocache just as far apart as they can be. So they managed to pack 4 of these things in here. So Aichan and I are gonna take a walk and we're gonna try and go find all 4. This is kind of a final send-off to the state. Whatever we find here is definitely gonna be our last caches in South Dakota for the trip. And who knew these rest area caches were going to be so interesting? I almost didn't want to touch it with the ants on the lid. But I'll do what it takes to get that logbook and get my ink stamped right onto it. Somehow, despite this being called a rest area, Aichan and I have done anything but rest here. In fact, most of the hiking that we've done in South Dakota, or North Dakota for that matter, was when we were at rest areas. We didn't see many hiking trails otherwise. This is ideal for a dog run too. You've got the fences on both sides and a long straight run of grass. But the most running that Aichan is going to be doing is that speed right there. That's pretty much maximum output for her, except if we're downhill and or on the way back to the car, then she's got a little more pep in her step. The thing is, she doesn't know we're on our way back to the car because this is a loop trail and those always throw her for a spin. This one looks like it's going to be a similar hide to the last one. but it has a lot of favorite points. I wonder why.
Appears to be a triple container. Perhaps we have options? Survey says there's one log. Nope. Swag. And swag spots. So you have 2 swag spots and a log bug. You've now converted a micro into a small that can hold swag. Smell it anywhere? Oh, good job, Ai-chan. You are excellent at this game. I don't even need to look for stuff with you around. Another very cool container. Swag on this side. Log and travel book on this side. And another great camouflage job. I was already done with South Dakota when we came into the state. I really just thought this would be a good spot to walk Ai-chan and find a few geocaches. Who knew I was going to be finding gems the whole way? This was a fantastic send-off to the state. Goodbye, South Dakota, and thank you for the warm welcome on my way out the door. And welcome back to Nebraska. We're just all over the map today.
The Mulberry Bend Scenic Overlook is a great place to get introduced to Nebraska. This short trail leads to 2 overlooks that offer views of the natural, free-flowing segment of the Missouri River. This is one of only 2 places that it still meanders through the countryside, much as it did in the days of Lewis and Clark. Because the Missouri River loses elevation at about 1 foot for every mile, the waters do not pick up much speed. Instead of cutting straight down through the valley, the river winds around high spots, solid rock, and resistant soils. Behind the dams, the waters slow even more and dump their loads of sand and dirt. Sioux City is divided by the Missouri River, one side in Nebraska and the other side in Iowa. On the Nebraska side, the very first place we visited was the Siouxland Veterans Memorial. As we might have hoped, this memorial provides a tasteful tribute to our soldiers in the typical fashion. If the typical fashion includes pointing an artillery piece down the main road. But it was the Siouxland Freedom Park that really took the winning prize here. This 55-acre park overlooking the Missouri River never closes. It is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It features a dog park, walking trails, lighting, and a 30 by 60 foot American flag flown at 150 feet high. It also features replicas of the Vietnam Memorial in Washington, D.C., including an exact half-scale replica of the wall, featuring the names of all 58,272 fallen service members from the war in Vietnam. And with the nearby Brigadier General Bud and Doris Day Interpretive Center set to open on Veterans Day, this is going to be one heck of a place to come visit.
Okay, really though, this is the last time. After this trip into Iowa, we're really starting into Nebraska, no other states. Probably.
Between late July to early September of 1804, Lewis and Clark traveled up the Missouri River between Iowa and Nebraska. To celebrate this history, the Welcome Center is also the Sergeant Floyd River Museum boat. This is one of only a small number of surviving vessels built specifically for the United States Army Corps of Engineers in its management of the nation's inland waterways. The museum is open daily and tours are free. Visitors are welcome and encouraged to walk each deck of the ship and take a look back through history. Deployed in 1932 in Jeffersonville, Indiana, the Sergeant Floyd was used until 1975, at which point she became a moving exhibit for the Army Corps of Engineers. After its decommissioning, it was moved to dry dock here in Iowa, where it was converted into a visitor center.
Well, the tour of the Sergeant Floyd was about as good of a welcome into Iowa as we could hope for. Unfortunately, we're not really doing Iowa for another week. But this was a great preview for what the state has to offer. For now, forward to Nebraska!
And we will take that approach via the Siouxland Veterans Memorial Bridge. Opened in 1981, this through-arch bridge sees about 28,000 people per day crossing its 1,500-foot length. And from there, we were officially ready to begin our miles to the day, rolling through the hills of Nebraska. While similar to South Dakota, we couldn't help but notice that these hills are wider, longer, and have more greenery and growth than the ones in South Dakota did. We had spent quite a while enjoying Sioux City though, so by the time we reached Wayne, our daylight was already beginning to fade. We chose to use the last of our light to make our way over to the courthouse where we could go check out the Wayne County Veterans Memorial. Completed in 2010, this memorial lists every veteran, living and dead, from Wayne County who served in the military during all of our country's wars, all 3,100 of them. It also features an amazing centerpiece of a U.S. Marine remembering the fallen. What a way to close things out. Well, travelers, looks like that's a wrap to our day. That sun is sinking quickly below the horizon now, and it's going to be dark by the time we make it to our next target. But we're right where we should be on timing. We've got a couple more hops to end our day, and we'll be there exactly when we want to be. Right now, we're shooting from Pierce, and this is a beautiful spot to end our day. We can hear the geese honking behind us. We have a beautiful view out over the pond, and the dog was awake, so it was a fantastic opportunity to take her on another walk. Today may be our first day of Nebraska, but really it was more of a tri-state trifecta. The way we weaved our way between South Dakota, Iowa, and Nebraska today was phenomenal. Staying along the Missouri River for the better part of our day provided us with awesome points of view all along the way and put us through these great towns and cities where we got to see a lot of amazing sights, particularly in Sioux City where we spent the bulk of our time. We'll be spending the next 9 days in Nebraska, and from here it's going to be pretty much Nebraska. We may cut over into another state when we come along the border, but we won't be doing any more dodging and weaving between the states like we did today. It's been a great time having you guys out here on the road with us, and I hope you continue to tune in for more adventures. Like this video, subscribe to stay tuned for daily updates, and we'll see you out on the trails.